it's obviously you guys are aware of Keyshawn's deal. It went from last time I saw you guys from, because there was not a moment where he hurt his knee, where everyone said, ooh, it just something flared up between the morning and the afternoon, and we just thought it was a cyst. And the next day after it was drained, he felt a pain, so they ran MRIs or whatever, and they discovered the cartilage tear, and he just had the surgery. That I don't remember when. Thursday. That's our Halloween day, so now it's cross our fingers and hope he heals the right way.
Questions, guys? Steve?
Frank, is he the only guy that's going to be out for the rest of the week? Just looking at this season, Frank, the guys were in here mentioned the Stony Brook, the Wyoming games last year. Has there been any different focus in preparing for these first couple?
We weren't very good in practice on we got a little cold bug hit our team. And Jermaine missed practice on Friday. When did we play? Wednesday? He missed practice last week with fever. I don't remember what day it was. And then he came back the following day. I don't remember what it was. But he missed practice, and AJ's fighting a cold. Kotsar's fighting a cold. There's someone else fighting a cold. I can't remember who it was. There's 4 guys fighting a cold going into Friday. And practice was just, we weren't bad. We just, Mike couldn't practice. So without Mike, without Keyshawn in practice, it kind of took a little energy and pop out of practice. And then with the other guys just dragging. I mean, when you got a cold, it just drags you down. And we weren't great. I'm hoping we're a lot better today. I don't know this team inside and out yet, but I think they'll be better today.
You mentioned going into the exhibition that you were going to coach that a little bit differently and handle things a little bit differently. Given the start to last year's season, did you take any kind of different approach going into this opening game from a mindset, preparation, messaging, anything like that?
No. I've because we do have some returning players that played last year at this time of year. Even though T.J. Moss got hurt, he was playing at this time of year. Justin, even though he got hurt, he was playing at this time of year. And then all the other guys that played, the AJs and Mike and so forth, Keyshawn. I've used the example of asking them for their answers, and they were honest in telling me that they didn't. Not my coach are, but all the other guys, like they didn't really mentally prepare to play some of these teams because they were schools that they had never heard of. And that's the biggest mistake young players make. They take the game for granted because it's a school that maybe they've never heard of or whatever it may be, and that's how you learn. That's why it's so hard to win with freshmen. People, there's only certain freshmen that are talented enough to help you overcome those days. But it's hard to be consistent when you got nothing but freshmen this early in the year because a lot of those guys take some of these teams for granted. That's the only thing I've done differently is that I've tried to make them understand, not to slight the opponent, but to make them understand if we had approached things this time of year with the same sense of urgency we did once we got the conference play, we would have been in postseason play last year. And just as a teaching lesson, trying to prepare them for what's in front of them kind of deal.
Coach, I know you hinted last week that you get more miserable the closer it gets in November, but I'm just curious, how exciting is it for you opening night to start a season, especially with this team that you're excited about?
I'm excited, but it's no different than every other year. My being at peace with things kind of went out the window this weekend. Just the fact that we didn't practice as well as I wanted us to on Friday and Saturday. We didn't practice yesterday. So yesterday, the way I'm at peace is when we're at practice, because I got a feel for my team. And like, we didn't practice. We were not very good Friday. We were a little better Saturday. And then not practicing yesterday, I've been uneasy all day, all night. Just because what gives me peace outside of my family is knowing that my team is prepared to play the next game. And so I'm hoping we practice the right way today so I can kind of get myself – I'm a little wound up today, so I can get myself back to where I was at last week. But that's just – it's part of the early season unknown. They have a lot of North Alabama. You see, got Tony, who coaches North Alabama, is from my neighborhood. He was my assistant AAU coach back in the '90s. He got his first head coaching job at a small little private school in Miami, and I put him in our tip-off tournament to help him back in 1993, I want to say it was. I was at North Miami High School at the time, and he's a dear friend. His wife was my oldest son's kindergarten teacher. So I know how his teams will play. I know what he demands. I know what he expects. But they have a lot of first-year guys. So there's a lot of unknown, not just with our team, but with the opponent, that makes it a little uneasy for the old ball coach early in the season.
Frank, with Jermaine, you talked a little bit last week about this kind of just being this emotions kind of letting him get him out of the way against the exhibition with him not playing. Kind of how do you balance that going into this first 2 or 3 games, and what are expectations for him to start the year?
Yeah, I'm sure there's some excitement going on in there for him. He's such a competitor. He loves to play. He's a very intellectual basketball player. Comprehends what you want, comprehends where things are at. But I'm sure that there's some excitement, it's been a while since I do this, because we can all play pickup and practice as much as we want. There's nothing like a game day. And it's been a while since he has a game day. So I'm excited for him. I think the way he's built, I don't think it'll be a big negative for him. I think he'll understand how to put them nerves aside and go out there and play. But I'm excited for him. He deserved to have played last year, and I'm excited that he's going to get that opportunity.
Frank, you mentioned it last week, but when you've gone through these couple of years where it just seems injury after injury after injury, is it just, act of God, bad luck? I mean, is there anything that you guys can try to do to prevent some of these things?
Last couple of years, it's been since the day I stepped foot on this campus. I mean, Michael Carrera's senior year, nobody wants to remember that the guy tore his groin on senior day. And then we had to play the second half with a torn groin. Then we got to go to Arkansas, and he can't play. And then we're in the conference tournament, and he still can't play. And he's our best player that year. Just keep going. Pick the year. Just pick the team. Pick the year. It's like I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. It's not like we. On the contrary, I used to do some crazy stuff in practice, and nobody ever got hurt. And I realized, which is part of my understanding, being a head coach at the collegiate level. In high school, we can do all kinds of charge drills and loose ball drills, and you get a guy dinged up, and it was okay because your regular season record didn't matter because everyone went to postseason play, and you just wanted to play your best at the end. College basketball, you get your 2 best players dinged up doing a loose ball drill, and they don't play. That's the game that keeps you out of postseason play, and if you lose that game, and so. Part of my maturation as a head coach is I think I don't make players do some of the crazy stuff I used to make guys do before in practice, even at K-State. I think the way I manage practice now is so much better than the way I used to. But the injury bug here has been like – and it's not just me. I mean, Heck, Will's dealing with a third-string left tackle or right tackle. One of those two guys is a third. It's like at one time all three quarterbacks are hurt. It's like, what Mark went through last year with his pitching staff. Every time someone threw, they tore a Tommy John. It was like, I don't know. I wish I had the answer. I pray about it every single Sunday. It's one of the first things that when I'm at church, to give me patience, to manage whatever comes our way, and to give our guys health, because it's incredible. It really is. It's unbelievable. And like I told you guys, the thing that gave me peace this summer is everybody was healthy. We had a whole team on campus. Everything was great, and boom. Now here comes the games. We got a knee. We got a cold. I mean, we got, our most experienced player can't practice. I mean, it's like, but.
Frank, aside from winning, what are some of the things you want to see out of your team opening night?
We have to create an identity on how we're going to play on offense. And I know how we practice. There's first-year guys that are going to play, and there's older guys that I've changed some stuff that we're doing offensively, that are trying to understand what we're doing a little differently. So it's a matter of everyone understanding so we can play fast. You hear people all the time say, we don't play fast. Fast doesn't mean just run up and down fast. Fast means that even when you're on offense, you're getting to your spots faster, you're setting your screens sooner, your cuts are better, and your decisions are quicker. And getting everyone on the same page so we can create that identity offensively. I think that's important. I think, and then I want to see us play in a game with people in the stands through the things I know we're doing well right now. Like I can tell you, one of the things that I really like about this team is offensive rebounding. I think we can be a really good offensive rebounding team. We didn't do that as well as we needed to in the scrimmage that you guys didn't see. We were just okay in the exhibition game. We got to get better at that. We got to inject that component into this game right away, because that can be a trait that's a strength of this team.
I guess when you're going into an opener with a team that obviously doesn't have much film, is there a game plan that's sort of cohesively built around what they might do looking back at stuff, or is a lot of it just you guys are going to go do your stuff and sort of work your way through that?
It's a little bit of both. When you don't have film, you got to rely on the other head coach. And like people, even though I'm changing some stuff around on how we're trying to do some things offensively, people that have coached against us, they know what my teams are going to try and do for the most part. I got a feeling for some of the things Tony likes to do. The problem is that he's only been a head coach at the collegiate level this is year number 2. And I want to say he's got 4 new junior college players. Plus he had a guy who redshirted last year. So it's the unknown, because early season scouting reports depend on a lot on trust. That's why experienced teams tend to have more success early in the season, because they understand how to manage the moment. What do I mean? Okay, so they're running a different set than what we saw on film last year. Okay, so during the timeout, you tell your team, like, hey, they're not running this. They're running whatever we call certain actions. This is what they're running. Sindarius, Dwayne, Justin Mackey, guys at Michael Correa, the teams that had experience, they know what I'm talking about right away, so they make the adjustment. Young guys, they don't make that adjustment. They don't understand. You can't expect them to understand that. So you got to manage that moment a little differently. And so that's the trouble with the early season games. That's the uncertainty of how whenever they run a certain screen that we're not prepared for. It's not that we're not prepared for. It's that we didn't know was coming. And I tell Jalen McCreary, Jalen, they're inverting that screen. Or Jalen, they're flipping the screen. That's not going to trigger anything in his head. So he's going to get confused. You understand what I'm saying? So understanding how to manage that with a first-year player, that's a big part of this unknown here.
Andrew McCullough.
Two-parter. First, with the surgery, is the 4 to 6 weeks still the time frame for Keyshawn, or has that been changed at all?
Yeah, the number that I've been told from day one is 6 weeks.
Okay.
So the optimist in me is hoping that, like Rolf Felder, 8 weeks. On his 4th week, that dude was bouncing off the walls inside the practice facility while we're practicing. Week number 5, he just, like, nothing hurts. So they brought the doctor in, they evaluated him, and he was on the court before his 6th week. So that's just, everyone's different. Alonzo Frank was the other way. They're all different. His knee just never felt in a place where he was at peace with it until, I think his was like the other extreme, like pretty much all the way to the original, I don't even know what the word diagnosis is for time missed. His was the other extreme. So, I had a guy, I'm not going to tell you who because it's not fair, had a really bad ankle sprain. He missed a day, ready to go. And then I had another guy who had the same ankle sprain. He missed 3 weeks. So everyone's different,
And obviously, Justin's injury last year gave opportunity to a guy like Keyshawn. Keyshawn's injury, who specifically I don't want to say benefits the most, but is going to get maybe more time out there because of him being out?
Yeah, I don't know if it benefits anyone in specific. We're just our depth at guard is something that we didn't have last year. So we like on Saturday, I want to say, I spent a great deal of practice time with Jair Bolden, AJ, and Jermaine at the 3 perimeter spots. So it's just, I don't think it's going to benefit. Last year it benefited Keyshawn because all we had was Keyshawn. This year we got multiple guys, so I'm kind of messing around with that. Trey Anderson, I thought, had his best 3 or 4 days of practice leading into Saturday. Then he wasn't very good Saturday. Trey's going to be a good player for us. He fell behind, and he struggled, but then he gained some ground last week. So maybe he's the one that gets an opportunity now with that.
I'll ask another injury question, but just how have you seen Keyshawn kind of handle it? He's obviously a pretty big personality. How has he just kind of mentally and emotionally been since that surgery and the injury?
Yeah, he's been real quiet. He's never, it's the first time he ever has any kind of injury. He's been real quiet. Tried to be engaged in practice Saturday, but it's hard. He was on crutches, and he's moving a little better today than he was on Saturday. He was trying to be engaged while, sitting on the side and all that. So it's a new experience for him. Justin Minaya, like, for example, with him, when he hurt his knee last year, it's not the first time he dealt with an injury. So he had an understanding of what he was dealing with to a certain extent. And this is a first for Keyshawn, so he's trying to take a deep breath. And when you get hurt for the first time, 5, 6 weeks, whatever it is, when you're told that seems like a long, long, long time. And so that tends to kind of break your spirits a little bit. Before he knows it, those 5 weeks will be up, and I'll be down his throat again and yelling at him, and he's going to wish he was back on crutches again. So it's.
Do you have a feeling of where Micaiah is with knowledge and understanding of what you're asking him to do and where he's headed?
Yeah, he's going to help us. I need him to play faster. I need him to play stronger. He's playing strong from a post-up standpoint, which is like the other day he had some opportunities around the rim that he's going to finish. He's got to make his free throws. I mean, I wish he was a 90% foul shooter. He was somewhere in the high 50s last year. Like I told him, what I wish and what you were, let's split it down the middle. Let's get you to 70%. I'll be really, really happy then. But where I need him to play stronger is defensively. Unfortunately, because of the league that he played in, where everybody he played against was 6'5", 6'6" post guys, he can get away with getting caught behind because he was longer and stronger than most. That's not going to work in the SEC. So he's got to get out of that habit. He's got to be a little more proactive on defending before his man catches the ball, not rely on defending once he catches the ball. He's going to be okay. He just if you remember Trey Campbell and Wes Myers and Frank Booker, they all had the same kind of struggles, different stuff, early in their first year here, their only year here. But they stayed the course. We stayed the course. And as the season went on, they got better, and better. And by the end of the year, they were all playing really good basketball for us. I think he'll be the same way.